Elvis arrived in the building, and there was no crowd, right? The audience wasn't there. But they would announce over the PA, Elvis is in the building. You know, I mean, it's fucking Elvis Presley.
Exactly.
So you didn't hear the announcement today. DCB has arrived. That's a great way to start. And I don't know that anyone has ever asked it specifically that way, right? You know, people usually say, well, tell me a little bit about you, or can you tell me your story? But they don't normally say, who is David Bernstein? So my initial reaction to that is, I'm the fourth of 5 children of Stanley and Charlotte Bernstein. That's the first person I am. Arrived June 28th, 1957, from some cosmos. Care of Charlotte Bernstein at the Pennsylvania Hospital in Philadelphia. And 66 years later, a lot has happened. I mean, more than I would have otherwise anticipated. So now we take the other bookend to that. I'm the father of 5 children, the grandfather of 2, and an escaped patient from a mental hospital, but we're not going to get into that. So, you know, everybody, all of us are an ongoing adventure, an ongoing story. So I was going to write a book like 20 years ago. And I did chapter titles. That's as far as I got. I did like 30 chapter titles. But now it's 20 years later, and there's all these other chapters I could now add. So procrastinating is maybe good in that respect. But, you know, so it's an evolution, who David Bernstein is. It's not, there's no end point to it. I mean, there was a starting point, but if you think about it, if someone said to you, well, what's your first memory? Okay. Like I know my first memory was dropping a ice cream cone. Been traumatized ever since. But I was like 3 and I was climbing a wall and I dropped an ice cream cone. But the question is, well, what was before that? Well, I don't know, but there was something, okay. Okay, and by the way, I don't know if that's much different than when you check out at the end. Okay, well, what's after that? I don't know, right? But we're going to be talking about what I know. Okay, so the ongoing evolution is continuing, and I think the more important parts of, at least my view, of my life, and specifically of my experience in music, is the people, right? Which is one of the reasons we're here, because when we came up with this concept, it was to call people I knew, who I had met, and to take what they had collected, which is ultimately an object which evokes a great deal of, it's evocative of a moment in time or an experience of a moment, but ultimately it's of that person. If you catch my, no, I'm not talking about the artist, I'm talking about the person who gave me or sold me the thing, right? And so being in Rock Lit, it's today, Oh, actually, as you saw last night, I ran into two people I hadn't seen forever, right? That's the real super groovy part of my experience in this industry. I've had great, relatively speaking, financial success. Not Bill Gates, but just fine, like more than my wildest dreams. But the value, the thing that, you know, the thing money can't buy is what you saw last night in the lobby. And when I just left here, I walked into that room over there, I ran into another person I hadn't seen. They recognized me, I didn't even recognize them, right? So being part of this great culture, you know, and the experiences that we've all had, and music, of course, is magical. So we've been incredibly fortunate, all of us that are part of this world. And, you know, there's a level, right? There's sort of like, there's a hierarchy. And what's interesting is, in theory, at the top of the food chain is the artist, right? I mean, the artist is that's the top of the food chain, ostensibly on a tour, right? And then you could say followed by their manager, and then maybe their booking agent, and maybe their business manager, and so forth. But, you know, it turns out most of my experience in this business is not at the artist level. I've met many, but it's not normally making deals with artists. Sometimes their manager, but usually not. But it starts at the production manager, like, you know, the crew, the backstage, like that's, you know, and where it all happens in terms of the actual, what is required from a production and technological perspective to actually give the artist the opportunity, well, the tools and the environment to perform. And there's a great cast of characters, and you've had an opportunity just to meet just a few of them, right? And I've got the opportunity to meet 1,000 or thousands, right? It's quite a privilege. So I am David Bernstein is the assembly of all these, a continuum of all these experiences. But I clearly identify very much, and I am identified by a lot of my peers as the work that I did within this industry, which includes primarily rocket cargo. But I think, as I told you, I was a partner in a company called Show Power, which we eventually sold to General Electric. I was a co-manager of a little group called the Dixie Chicks, now called the Chicks, and don't you forget it. And when I signed up to be a partner in the management company that ultimately signed the Dixie Chicks, they were totally unknown, and I'm pretty sure it was their first record sold 10 million units for real. It was called Wide Open Spaces. Crazy, right? Totally crazy. You know, within music, or within this industry, I've also been involved with a company called Tate Towers, the preeminent set builder, and co-designer of many, many touring shows, the #1 best in the business, top of the food chain in its field. I've been involved in like 6 or 7 entities that support the world of touring entertainment. And luckily for me, I've had a pretty unique career, because many people, like my brother Joel, who got me started in this business, have long-term relationships with specific artists. So if you're a touring professional, my brother's a photographer and a guitar technician. There would be maybe 7 or 8 principal long-term career artists that ran through a thread of his career. So Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Joni Mitchell, Tom Petty, Prince, Bruce Springsteen. Okay, so that's and that's pretty normal in terms of the touring professionals. They would have a relatively limited number of people that they worked with for a long period of time. Whereas at Rocket, I worked with hundreds of people, hundreds of touring artists. And so I met a really large array of production people, the vendors supporting the tours, managers, tour accountants, so forth. So it was a unique experience. And all over the world. That was the other thing, because it was international.